back, everybody. It is time for another episode of Blitz Boys. I just punched my desk. That kind of hurt. But nonetheless, week one is in the books. It was an amazing week one. A lot of people are complaining, saying, oh, there was no close games. There was a ton of close games. You just didn't want
hmm
to watch Fresno State, Purdue, or, any of the, you wanted to watch the big names. And that's fine. I get it. But don't say, it was a bad week one, because it was a great week one. And by the way, college football's back. I don't care. I will watch Alabama play Middle Tennessee State 5 times if it just means I get to watch college football. Regardless, either way, we had a ton of fun watching it, and we're here to break down all of week one, get you ready for Friday night's game as well, and then lead into week two. And don't forget, Saturday morning, Out of the Tunnel will be live 9 a.m. on our YouTube and our X. Uh, I know it's X now, but I still call it Twitter. But nonetheless, we'll be live on both of those for Out of the Tunnel, so we hope you guys join us there. Stop rambling, and we'll get into our episode this week. A lot to talk about. Um, let's get in, and we're going to look at some of the games from last week, the 10 that we picked on Out of the Tunnel. Uh, the first game up, probably the biggest game of the week. We had Colorado going to TCU. Coach Prime in his FBS debut, coaching debut, leads Colorado to a 45-42 victory over TCU, the national runner-ups from last year. We talked about this on Saturday. Obviously, there's a ton of changes in that team from last year, but still, very impressive to go out there and have that showing in your first game. The other game we had is a huge upset. Fresno State beats Purdue on the road, 39-35. Ohio State looked really ugly. We'll talk about them here in a minute. But they beat Indiana 23-3. Boise State goes out to Washington and gets stomped 56-19. And Slade was at the tailgate for this one. He didn't go to the game. Penn State beats up on West Virginia 38-15. So let's go back. We'll start with this Colorado TCU game. Slade, your initial thoughts from this game?
I mean, I think that Coach Prime basically spoke it into existence. I mean, it's the part where a lot of times people say we're going to go out there and do this. I mean, what's his name from LSU?
Ryan
Uh,
Clay.
Said we're going to go out and kick the crap out of Florida State, and we saw what happened there. I mean, Coach Prime has been basically talking his team up the entire offseason. I mean, there was a lot of drama surrounding this team. He came in, he basically told everyone, go find another place to play because I'm bringing guys in and they're Louis. They're better than you, basically. I think that his son had an amazing game. I forget what his son's name is, the quarterback one. But he has two of
Shador.
them that play on the team. But uh, yeah, so I mean, he threw for like 500 yards against obviously a completely different team from last year, but TCU still the returning national runner-ups. Amazing. And then you have Travis Hunter, who I think they say he played like somewhere over 120 snaps, offensive side, defensive side, an interception, touchdown. I think like 120 receiving yards. Just ridiculous play out of him as well. It's going to be hard if this team makes a run and gets into a bowl game, to kind of count them down because I think their over under win total was like 3 games, 2.5, 3.5 maybe or something like that on the season.
Yeah, I think it
I
was
mean,
three.
we might see them hit 3 wins by the end of September here just based on their schedule. So I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, just going back to Coach Prime, as a football coach and a former player, that is the kind of coach that you want to play for.
Mhm.
If you listen to him in interviews, it sounds arrogant, it sounds cocky, but if you listen to how he talks about his players, he treats them like they're his own sons. It's one thing to have that he has two sons on the team, but he treats every guy on that roster like they're his blood, and that makes it so much easier to buy into a program like that. And I had my reservations about how I thought they would do. I didn't think they'd be terrible. I thought they'd be much improved from last year, but I thought, you know, going on the road, your first game in what's going to be a hostile environment against what I thought was still going to be a pretty good team was going to be a tall task. They showed up. Now their defense does still give me concerns outside of Travis Hunter. You know, they can throw away from him. I think they're gonna get into competitive matchups.
Mhm.
Towards the end of September here, they play Oregon and USC back to back. Those are gonna be two very difficult games for them, but it's gonna tell a lot about them. I'm excited for their game this weekend. I know Nebraska's not very good on the offensive side of the ball, but they do have a very good defense. What I think much better than what TCU brings to the table. So it'd be interesting to see how they can adjust to a level up style of defense. I think they're going to win, but I, I I'm curious to see how they'll make the defensive or offensive adjustments to a very good.
Who who did you feel will win there? Sorry, I missed the middle part there. Did you think that Nebraska will still pull out the win or Colorado?
No, I say Colorado.
Okay,
Uh,
okay.
no, but the last thing I want to talk about from this game is there was a lot of talk about Shador Sanders and Travis Hunter. Obviously, they deserved it. Dylan Edwards is the guy who impressed me the most. Kind of just burst onto the scene. Nobody was really talking about him prior to this game, and he absolutely played out of his mind on Saturday. Um, six on rushing side, he only 24 yards rushing and a touchdown, but receiving, he 135 yards on 5 catches, 3 touchdowns. Just absolutely insane stats to put up on the offensive side of the ball as a running back to catch for 135 yards. He was lightning fast. He gets to that edge quick on those little swings and screens. And if you try to arm tackle him, he's gone. And that was beyond impressive for me to watch. Um, again, everybody's looking at Travis Hunter kind of bursting on the scene. Okay, this is Colorado's Heisman guy. I think Dylan Edwards at season end, if he stays healthy, is going to be the name out of Colorado that we see being associated with the Heisman race. Because if he can put up stats like that, that is going to be an ungodly season to try and defend. And he was, from my point of view, he was the most fun to watch on Saturday. Let's go to the next game, Fresno State and Purdue. I'm upset with myself because I had Fresno State penciled in. They were my team picked until Friday night when I started making our graphics for Saturday morning for Out of the Tunnel. I was like, you know what?
Too much
Purdue has,
research.
yeah, I was like, Purdue has Graham Harrell lining up or run the offense now. I was like, you know what? Hudson Card from Texas is going to be the QB, and I talked myself out of it. I said, Purdue's offense, it's going to take them a little while to get going, but this offense is going to be fun to watch. And I talked myself out of picking Fresno State. Fresno State goes out there and wins. Nonetheless, this was a great game. It came down to a late fourth down stop for Fresno State to get the win. A huge upset win for them, coming off that great season last year, winning the Mountain West. People weren't super high on them. I mean, I know I wasn't. I was high on Boise State. We'll talk about them here in a minute. Slade, I don't know if you got to watch much of this game because, like I said, I know you're at the tailgates. Just your thoughts from this game.
Yeah, I mean, I had picked Fresno to win. Obviously, it was an upset pick on Saturday. Looking at it like before the game, but yeah, it seems as if based on stats, I mean, their QB, I think it's Keene or what, however you say it. I mean, 31 of 44 for 370 yards, 4 touchdowns. His one hiccup was an interception. It's going to be really hard to beat that when Purdue's quarterback was 17 of 30 for
Mm-hmm.
250. Now, I mean, 17 of 30, 250, 2 touchdowns is still really good with the offense putting up 35 points. But if the other quarterback throws for 4 touchdowns, it's going to be hard to compete with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, like I said, I think Purdue will be fine going forward. I mean, it's going to take a few games to get the irons, wrinkled out in competition. Um, I'm still excited to see what they can do down the line. We're not used to seeing this style of offense in the Big Ten. The Big Ten is, give me your eye back formation, and we're going to run power right, power left, play action passes. This is a full, we're going to spread them out and we're going to chuck the ball down the field. Um, so I'm excited to see how this can kind of work out in the Big Ten a year before we start to really get these spread offenses in coming from, the West Coast, USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington. I know Wisconsin's kind of running like a hybrid offense with Luke Fickle going over there. Obviously, they had great success on Saturday, but this is basically a trying to think of it. Can't think of it. It was Mike Leach's old offense. Why can't I think of the name of this offense? Anyway, yeah, it's air raid. It's an air raid offense. Oh my god. Um, But so this is something that we really haven't seen in the Big Ten before. So I'm curious to see how this will work out, kind of as the season starts to progress. Ohio State, Indiana. Ohio State wins 23-3. Not what any of us had expected. I had said I think we played over under before the games. I said Ohio State would cover the spread, but it would be under the total. Or maybe I said Ohio, I can't remember exactly what I said, but I didn't expect the game to be 23-3.
The spread was 30.
Yeah, I think the over under was like 46 or something like that. But Kyle McCord didn't look horrible. I mean, he absolutely had some bad throws, but he also made some really good throws, some athletic moves, showed glimmers of why he was such a highly touted recruit, probably why he got picked to be the starter at Ohio State. But his misses were a lot fewer and far in between. Um, er, he had a lot more misses than what a lot of people expected, especially as the game continued. Again, this time of year we expect offenses to start slow. We got to get into our groove. Ohio State just never found it, and they struggled throughout the entire day. So, your thoughts from this game?
Jesse is not going to be worried. He's going to be like sticking with the team. I picked Ohio State to win the national championship, and I'm already regretting it week one.
Yeah.
Ohio
No,
State is
no.
a position
Jesse
that
was
I have.
worried. He was texting me on
Yeah,
Saturday. He was
yeah,
worried.
he better be. I didn't know if he was going to stick up a hard front. I think that we're seeing Ohio State in unfamiliar territory that they have not seen. Yes, they've moved through quarterbacks just about every 2 years at the school,
Mhm.
but it always seems like every quarterback that they put in, that quarterback breaks the last quarterback's passing records, touchdown records, everything. I don't see that being a possibility just based on this. I mean, he even throw a passing touchdown. He threw one interception, 240 yards, 20 of 33. Now I understand it's his first time playing uh, on this big stage like this. A first opportunity to run the offense this season, but I mean, against Indiana, you got to hope that you can at least find the end zone once. I mean, even with it being Indiana, not to like completely crap on Indiana, but this is Ohio State, who has a top 10 recruiting class every single year.
Yeah.
There's just no reason that even a 20-yard pass shouldn't break away for a touchdown at some point in the game, and they didn't have any of this. So I'm
Yeah.
super worried. I mean, usually even if they have a couple troubles with the quarterback, they've got a great running back. And I mean, 8 carries for 60 yards was their leading running back. I mean, now that's great, but you would think that they would have more than 23 points with the recruits, the team that they have. I was very disappointed. I mean, I think they should have scored double the points against Indiana.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but shout out to Indiana though for coming
Yeah.
out. I mean, again, you have a 30-point spread hung on your head. You're at home. People expect nothing out of you this season. And the fact that they went out there, they put up a hell of a fight, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Um, Held them to 23 points when everybody thought Ohio State might be pushing the over on their own. Um, the
Penn
other thing,
State and Michigan better be on watch.
yeah. um, Talking about Common Core, and then there was also talk of Devin Brown trying,
Mm-hmm.
right, split some reps. He had, I think, three, maybe three series total, and then we didn't see him anymore in the game. And
Yeah, he
I
went
was
one for
watching,
three minus 2 yards.
yeah, I was watching CBS during like towards the end of this game, and they were talking about that, and they were like, oh, we're just gonna stick with the hot hand. I'm like, what hot hand does Ohio State have right now that they're sticking with? And I get it. He was your starter, and why yank him if again he wasn't playing absolutely horrible, but
They're
that
not
was
trying
just
to beat down his confidence.
yeah. Yeah, that definitely I feel like would have made things worse. But I'm just saying, just the way CBS phrased it, I was like,
I mean, Devin Brown went one for three with two uh, loss of 2 yards, and then he also rushed the ball once for a loss of 3 yards, which I'm sure just counts as a sack or out of the
right.
pocket tackle or something. But I mean, it's just QB room needs to step up at Ohio State. That's all I gotta say.
I mean, and there's already whispers. I mean, we talked about this before with Ryan Day losing back-to-back games against Michigan. That
Yep.
if it happens a third time in a row, is his seat going to start to get a little hot? And again, he's not a bad coach. He got them to the college football playoff last year. They lost in a questionable fashion against Georgia, so they could have possibly won a national title with everything considered. But Ohio State, their main concern is we need to beat Michigan first, then we'll go win a national title. I still think they would have considered last season a failure had they lost to Michigan and it still gone on to win the national title. Just in again,
Mm-hmm.
from the outside looking in, that's not a failure to us, but just the standard that Ohio State fans hold themselves to. I feel like that's a genuine discussion that can start happening, especially with the slow start this season. There's some question marks around Ryan Day right now.
Yeah, so I mean, do you think that this adds into what was it, 2 years ago that no, 3 years now that Joe Burrow was at LSU?
Yeah.
Or is that two? When he went there, they did the big story about how he was at Ohio State. He was sitting behind two great quarterbacks. Both the guys on the bench knew that they were never going to see game time because that's just how it is. You wait until it's your turn. You might only get to play 1 year, but you're playing at a great university that it's not going to matter. You're going to be great, and you're going to get drafted. You're going to play in the NFL. Are we seeing it that people are tired of waiting on the bench at Ohio State?
I don't even think that's an Ohio State problem. I think we're seeing it across the country right now.
They
I
can just
mean, if
transfer anywhere. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, if you look at we were talking about Baylor before the show. Baylor got whooped up on a Texas State. Texas State brought in an ungodly amount of transfers last year because they brought people in, from these high end schools that were tired of sitting third, fourth string, and they're like, I know I'm better than this. So they transferred out. They go to Texas State, and now I think they beat Baylor by what, like 20 some points. It might have been a little closer than
It's,
that.
it's
Um,
rough.
but yeah, so I think that's a college football problem, and it's not necessarily a problem. I mean, that you want to talk about leveling the playing field, um, but I don't think it's a problem relegated to Ohio State is what I'm trying to get at.
Right, right. 42-31, so they beat them by 11.
Yeah. Let's move on. Let's look at Boise State and Washington. I had this as my upset alert. I thought Boise State could at least keep this within. I think the spread was 13.5 at kickoff, 12.5, somewhere around there. I was wrong. I mean,
Uh,
at halftime it was close. I'm sorry, not even halftime. At the end of the first quarter, it was 6-0. Um, it went back and forth at the beginning there.
yeah,
Um,
second quarter is where it really blew up.
yeah, well, it was late in the second quarter.
Yeah,
Um, let's see here. So
28
it
to
was
28 to 12 at halftime.
yeah, it was 6-0, 6-7, 9-7. And then, yeah, Washington just went on a run there. They were up 28-9. Boise State got a late field goal. They did come out. They scored a touchdown to start the second half. They were down 28-19, and that's the last we heard of Boise State. Washington just goes on a run there. So again, like we said before, week one, it's going to take a little bit for some of these teams to start clicking. But man, when Washington started clicking, they were firing on all cylinders. Boise State was kind of marching the ball up and down the field there early, even when they weren't, getting those scoring drives, they were moving the ball consistently. Washington kind of struggled here or there, but man, I mean, middle of the second quarter, they just flicked that switch and they were gone. And there was no Boise State was not keeping up at all. So bad week to pick them as my upset alert, but I had high expectations for Boise State this year. The way the Mountain West kind of started off as a whole with Fresno State beating Purdue, uh, Wyoming also topples Texas Tech on the road. There's lofty expectations there. I thought they could keep it, within a score, maybe, 14 points at the most. That was not the case. Not the case at all. So Slade, we'll switch over. We'll talk about Penn State, West Virginia. You and I loved the outcome of this game, especially at the end, but I'll let you talk about it first.
Um, I think that it was a good building block for Penn State. I think that a lot of people, including me, were worried that there was a possibility that Penn State could come out and just lay an egg. There's
Mhm.
so much expectation around this team, and usually when there's a lot of expectation for Penn State, um, they end up making life a lot harder for themselves the rest of the season, losing to Illinois in 8 overtimes, or someone that they shouldn't really lose to, but they end up doing it just to make life harder on themselves. I do want to say that I agree with the West Virginia fans that put out and said that coaches don't know the spread. Um, there's no reason that James Franklin should have ran any plays with 25 seconds left in the game. They were already up at that point, 32-15.
Mhm.
Um, or maybe 31, I don't
31,
know, whatever.
31,
Yeah,
yeah.
31. Yeah. And so I mean, I understand that at this point, I mean, this is what we had said last year. I think you and I both said this last year, that the way the college football playoff works, you have to beat everyone by 1,000,000 points. If you're expected to win by 10, you have to win by 20. And it's just, you're going to lose at some point. It's very rare for any of the teams to go undefeated unless you're Georgia or Alabama or something, but, um, you have to make sure that every game that you do win is way more than what was expected just to kinda get that extra vote for yourself later on down the line.
Mhm.
Um, the fact that it was right at the spread, right at the over under, and he's running plays with 12 seconds left. It's very comical.
Yeah.
Very hard to go and sit in a press conference afterwards and be like, because Penn State, I mean, obviously there's some bad stuff that comes with Penn State, but recently they've prided themselves on tradition and honor and respect and stuff like that. So that definitely went against a lot of that there at the end of the game.
See, here's where I'm coming from, and I'm actually kind of defending James Franklin here. I
Okay.
think in his mind, I think when West Virginia scores that touchdown, listen, they got to try at least, right? They weren't. There was still a little time left.
Hmm.
Hey, we're not going to give up. We're going to score. We're going to go for two. We're going to try the onside kick. I think where James Franklin drew the line is when they tried the dumbass ring around the rosy play that we saw the
Hmm.
Kansas City Chiefs do. Difference when the Kansas City Chiefs did it is they were winning that game. Like they were just they had clinched AFC West. They were just fucking around at that point. Here West Virginia is they're trying to make a comeback and they do this BS ring around the rosy play. If I'm James Franklin, I don't care if I'm up 63-15. I take that as disrespectful. And I'm like, I would have taken that laying down. I would have done the same exact damn thing. I get the ball on my 50-yard line because I recovered the onside kick. Screw it. And I respect that he at least did it with the backups. Okay, let's put the backups in here. Let's see if you can move the ball because they saw their starting defense out there because they needed to try and get the ball back. Hey, let's move the ball down here. Let's see what we can get. Now, the other reason I'm thankful for James Franklin is because I won my bet. And that's all I was asking for. I just
Same.
needed a field goal in that drive because I think you got it for me. I think the over under was 48.5, and I thought it was 49. So at first I thought I needed the touchdown that I double checked. I just needed a field goal. I was like that'll
Hmm.
get me 49 on the dot. And I didn't realize that I watching the game, I didn't even realize in real time it was 4th and 3 when they went for it. I was like,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's why
So,
that's why it's so much more disrespectful that
yeah.
instead of just kicking a field goal, he got the spread. I mean, it's yeah, go, but you're good.
Yeah. No, I mean, and maybe at that point he was like, "You know what? Let's beat them. Let's cover the spread here. Why not?" But I genuinely think it traces all the way back to them trying that 2-point conversion in such a BS fashion. Like
Eh,
there was
I'm gonna backtrack a little because they are trying to renew this as a rivalry. They're
Mhm.
trying to make this sort of like the Pitt thing, except Pitt was unable to win most of the games. Um, I think that maybe this plays a little bit into that. He can throw some animosity, like you're saying. I do think that West Virginia was unable to move the ball basically the entire game, and so if they're gonna try some trick play, foolery shit to try and get the ball in the end zone, they have to try whatever they can. I also at the beginning of the season said Neil Brown deserves to lose his job,
Yeah.
or should be on the hot seat. I think that he's probably feeling the same way. So I think that they're just gonna try all the stops if they're down in the game. I mean, I'm impartial now that you've brought up about the different things, but I just think that it was very funny that these people were right on it right away after the game. I mean,
Yeah.
I told you, I woke up at midnight to get ready to go to work, and I already saw TikToks at that. I mean, the game just ended like an hour before that, and I'm
Yeah.
already seeing TikToks of them being like, James Franklin had $50,000 on the spread. He's running the ball with 4th and 3 with 6 seconds left.
Yeah. No, and again, maybe once all that happened, he was like,
Yeah,
screw it, let's cover the spread. Like I said, I'm tracing it back to, I think at the very least, I think it was the disrespectful and pointless 2-point conversion play. Like you could have just lined up and ran that same exact 2-point conversion play, and you would have been fine. Doing a little ring around the rosy thing. Also, they were like an inch away from being a false start before they even
yeah,
got out of the huddle because the huddle kept moving
yeah.
and so I think that's where I trace everything back to at least. Um, Sorry, Home Depot. I just started going off in my ear. But so yeah, that's kind of where I take everything back to. But nonetheless, I'm thankful he did it, just because I was not having the greatest day betting, and so that kind of at least was a nice little bonus. It was a sweat too because I'm sitting there, I'm like, damn, like it's not gonna happen. And they start getting down the field. I'm like, maybe they kick the field goal here. I was like, I'll take those points at least. Like I'll hit the over. and then they went for it. I was like, oh damn, okay, I'll take that all day. Let's move on here. Let's talk about some more games. UNC and South Carolina played here in Charlotte. Not how I expected this game to go at all, especially with how the first half went. You know, South Carolina looked really good throughout the first half. They go into the locker room, they make their adjustments. Um, they were down three. It was 17-14 at halftime.
Mm-hmm.
But it looked good, and then all of a sudden they come out and
Loaded
UNC
goose
just
egg.
throttles them in the second half. They get a garbage time field goal late in the fourth quarter. The third quarter was really where it broke. I mean, UNC put up both of their touchdowns in the third quarter, but they were just dominating South Carolina on both sides of the ball, especially on the front line there in the second half. South Carolina's offensive line is inexperienced, and I get that, but watching the game live as I did, they were just missing like simple like key reads and block and letting you know free guys just roam right into the backfield and sack Rattler. Speaking of Rattler, he throws for 353 yards and no touchdowns. So I mean, just rough day all around, and there was so much expectation behind South
30 of
Carolina.
39.
Yeah, so much expectation around this South Carolina team based off of how they ended last year. I mean, all three of us picked them to win this game. Um, Not at all what we expected to come out of South Carolina. Your thoughts on this?
I will say in Spencer Rattler's defense, I expected if you'd have told me that UNC is going to win 31-17 and Spencer Rattler's not going to have an offensive touchdown, I would have said that Spencer Rattler threw 19 of 39 for 3 interceptions and like 280 yards. The fact that he's not necessarily the offensive reason as to why they weren't able to get it done,
Mhm.
obviously he should be able to, maybe hit someone different, whatever. But I mean, he wasn't making the mistakes that I expected him to make for them to go out and lose like this.
Yeah.
Um, Drake May, on the other hand, I mean, he had a great game. I mean,
Yeah.
still two
It,
interceptions, but their defense was able to capitalize, and so I mean, it was
yeah. I,
great on his
I
day.
think
Sorry.
UNC. I was just going to say. I think UNC eliminated their two biggest concerns. I mean, it's week one. Well, let's see how
Mhm.
it's still going to be a concern throughout the rest of the year. But in this game, they quelled the two biggest concerns a lot of people had about their teams. One was the new offensive coordinator coming in, and he preached all off season. We're going to run the ball. Drake Mays is not going to be throwing it up, 50 times a game and whatnot. And then the second concern was UNC's defense has struggled a lot the last few years. And here they are in week one. They hold a high caliber offense to 17 points. Their offense puts up 31. Drake May looked good. The running game looked it was a balanced attack. UNC just looked good across the board. So encouraging signs out of Chapel Hill in week one. Let's move over to South Alabama at Tulane. This game was a lot farther apart than I thought it would be. South Alabama came off that 11-2 season last year, I think it was. Tulane obviously it goes to Cotton Bowl. They beat USC. There might be we talked about this Saturday morning. Maybe there's a little bit of an arrogance flow through them right now. Maybe they think they're too good for this kind of game. No, they went out there and they played really good football. Pratt throws 4 touchdowns, almost 300 yards. Jaquan Jackson, um, 3 receptions, 106 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That is an
The
absolutely insane stat line for a wide receiver.
the offensive stats of Tulane's team is just ridiculous. I mean, you already said Pratt threw for 4 touchdowns. He did that on 14 completions.
Yeah.
He went 14 of 15 for 295 yards and 4 touchdowns. I mean, it's basically like he just threw the ball and Jackson just ran it for 50 yards into the end zone. And then he threw the ball again and Jackson ran it for 50 yards into the end zone. Then he threw it to someone else and they ran it for 40 yards into the end zone. Like it's just it makes it seem as if South Alabama didn't even put a defense out there on the field.
I mean, at that rate, he might as well not have. But I mean, Tulane is obviously the front runner
Oh, for
for
sure.
Group of Five, representative for New Year's Six this year. Some people have said, what if they play an Ole Miss team this weekend? It's at home again. That I'm excited to watch that game. We're going to talk about that again in a little bit. Um, People are talking about it. If they beat Ole Miss, do you think that'll make them playoff contenders? I'm going to say right now, no. Even if they run the table from here on out, if they go undefeated. One, because the American isn't as strong as what it was in years past. Two, I think the committee is going to be trepid because, hey, Cincinnati went undefeated and then they did it again the next year. We let them in and they got stomped by Alabama. Is that something we want to do again? And I think, again, I am not high on Ole Miss. I understand they brought in high end transfers, they bring in high end recruits. They always just seem to kind of falter towards the end of the year. And if that happens again, if Tulane beats them, I think they falter again either right now or they get to the end of the year and they kind of struggle to finish it out. They lose some sloppy games, and from there they'll kind of diminish the caliber of that win, I guess, in Tulane's eyes. But so I'm going to say even if Tulane wins this weekend and they run the table, I don't think they make the playoffs. Um, Next game we got here is Coastal Carolina at UCLA. I took Coastal Carolina to win this game. Backfired. They were down 13-14 at one point, then UCLA kind of poured it on. So not great for me. Your thoughts on this game, Slade?
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing that came from it for me is that neither quarterback could throw an accurate pass for the most part. I mean, McCall for Coastal Carolina, 27 of 42 with 2 interceptions, and then Moore for UCLA, 7 of 12 with an interception. I mean, obviously they both threw for 1 and 2 touchdowns respectively, but I just think that they've definitely got to do better at the quarterback position if either team. I mean, UCLA should be scoring like 40 points. They're a Pac-12 team. I mean, this is what they do offensively. 27 points, and their quarterback throw only having 7 completions is just not what I expected out of them. And just Chip Kelly complaining at the end of the game just really irked
That was
me.
at halftime.
Halftime. Sorry,
Yeah.
he's complaining that they only got to touch the ball 4 times, and it's just pitiful. I mean, I don't know what he wants out of it. He was used to the rolling clock in the NFL when he coached there. Maybe that's one of the driving factors as to why he left. I don't know, but what were
I
your
mean, he
thoughts?
got fired. He didn't leave.
Well, right, but I'm saying maybe
But
that's why he
no,
sucked.
I mean, going to Chip Kelly, I mean, I as much as it's him whining and stuff, I mean, I agree with his complaint at the same time. I mean, they talked all off season. We want to make these games quicker. We don't want these games dragging out. That's not what they wanted to do. They wanted to fit more timeouts in there so they can run 5 minutes of commercials. Um, I, that's what annoyed me. But going back to UCLA's offense, if you look at Dante Moore, he's not their starter. He just got playing time he's a true freshman. He was the 5-star recruit. He was supposed to go to Oregon, and then when Kenny Dillingham left to take the Arizona State job, he withdrew, and then he decided to go to UCLA. So Ethan Gabers was technically the starter. He got more playing time. So for Moore as a true freshman, getting playing time and playing as well as he did. On seven completions, I get 7 for 12 is an outstanding stat, but 7 completions he threw for 143 yards. One of those was an interception, and he did throw for 2 touchdowns. So I mean, as a true freshman, I'm going to take that with a grain of salt when I'm looking at that. Hey, this is his first FBS kind of playing level. He played against a very good opponent, um, and he played pretty well on top of all that.
One,
Go ahead.
sorry, last thing I want to say about Chip Kelly. Um, Oregon scored 81 points. Ole Miss scored like 73. Uh, Oklahoma scored 70 something, 76 maybe or something like that. Obviously these were against very lesser opponents than playing Coastal Carolina, but if there's 90 points, 80 points being scored in a game total, it just means that your team isn't up to the level at which you expect them to play if you're whining about only getting 4 touches in the ball because Oregon touched the ball more than 4 times in the first half.
Yeah. No,
So
and
I
and
don't
and
know.
yeah, and like I said, I agree with you that it was whiny. I'm just saying I think the point he was at the end of trying to make was, about we talked about trying to speed these games up, and then here we are
Mm,
adding all these. That's what I agree with more so than like you said.
yeah,
You only got 4 possessions. So that's kind of your own fault.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, I agree with you on that front. But the other 2 games we're going to look at, one was on Sunday night. This was our game of the week for this week. It was LSU and Florida State. We thought this was going to be a lot closer. It was not. Florida State goes out in the second half and absolutely just dominates LSU. This was a wild game. They put up 31 alone. 31-7 is how they outscored UCLA or LSU, excuse me, in the second half. LSU goes into halftime up 17-14. Um, I also want to talk about there was 2 fourth downs LSU went for. The first one I kind of understood. It was fourth and goal, I think like the 2-yard line, if that. I get that, and especially week 1 against a high caliber opponent like this, you need to make a statement early. They get stuffed, okay, fine. The second I believe it was the very next drive. It was 4th and 1. I think they were on the 25-yard line. I didn't understand going for it there. Obviously, Florida State showed that they were able to fire off the ball and get into those gaps and stuff you on a 4th and short. I think there I would have taken the field goal. At that point, you go into halftime up 6. I think there's a little bit better mentality around that team, and you come out a little relaxed in the second half, and I think this is a better game going forward. I get it. I don't think 3 points changes a whole lot, but I think it's a, a little ripple wave that actually changes a lot. Your thoughts on this game, Slade?
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much said it. I picked FSU to win this game, but nowhere did I think that they were going to win by 21 points. I forget what the spread was, 2.5 for LSU, I think, or something like that. So
Yeah.
I did not see this coming at all. Florida State was firing on all cylinders, it seemed like, and LSU was trying to play keep up as best they could. Obviously, the second half, they were unable to do that at all. But like you said, I think if they kick the field goal there, go in 6 point lead, um, as we saw it come out, I mean, FSU came out, kicked a field goal in their first drive, so they would have still been up by 3 points, and then you kind of play from there. It's kind of like a reset. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's just rough to be LSU right now because I'm sure that they had a lot of high hopes. What would this been? Second year for head coach?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't see the rest of their season going the way that they expect. I mean, they are going to have. I think that they beat Ole Miss like week 5, the end of September, but I think that they're going to have hard games. I don't think that they come close to beating Alabama. I think that they're going to have a lot of trouble with Texas A&M at the end of the season too. So I think that maybe you had them winning the SEC.
I had them winning the SEC and the national championship.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously one game doesn't determine the entire season. They could go out, win the rest of the games of the season, win the SEC like we had said, and still win the national championship. But they've got to change a lot of things offensively and some defensively as well if they plan to do that.
Yeah. Just last thing I want to talk about. So Jordan Travis and Jaden Daniels were two of
Mhm.
my picks for the Heisman finalists this year. Jordan Travis absolutely looked great. 23 of 31, 342 yards, 4 touchdowns. He did throw one pick, though. Jaden Daniels, 22 of 37, 346 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He also ran for 64 yards. He had a 40-yard sprint earlier in the game that kind of got him ahead there. Still, both of them looked good. So I'm excited to see how both of them play throughout the rest of the week. The last game we're going to talk about was on Monday night. Clemson traveled to Duke as 13.5 point favorites. You and I talked about this before the game. I said, we talked about this on Saturday. You thought, excuse me, it was 12.5 point favorites. You thought Clemson would easily cover this. I said, there's no way. Duke is going to hang around and keep this close. I didn't see it going like this. Um, I posted a TikTok earlier today. I apologize to DJ Uyunglele. We talked about it all last year. We blamed Clemson's problems
Mhm.
on him. It was all his fault. I don't think that's the case. I think this game made it very clear, and I don't want to blame Kate Klubnik either. I think Kate Klubnik looked fine. He didn't look stellar or anything like that, but I think he looked fine. His one interception he threw literally hit Will Shipley in the hands, bounced straight up in the air. Duke picks it off, and that ended up being kind of what sealed the game. Uh, Regardless, I don't think anybody had this game going this way. I mean, Clemson had 422 total yards, 213 rushing, 209 passing. So, I mean, the offense was moving the ball. They just could not finish drives. And Duke was playing a very dependable style of bend but don't break. And it looked like a few times Clemson was finally getting it rolling. They're going to punch in for a touchdown here, and here's going to come the onslaught. And Duke weathered it. And they played great on both sides of the ball, mainly offense. So this was a fun game to watch. Before I talk any more about it, so do you have any thoughts from this game?
Yeah, I mean, I think that obviously I was the most wrong of any of our picks this week. I was very high on Clemson. I think I even had them. I'll have to look at my notes, so I'll come back with it on Saturday. But I think I even had them in my top 6 for playoffs. I think Clemson goes into halftime 1 point up, 7-6. Uh, they come out. Duke comes out and scores right away, like 12 minutes left in the quarter, and I think at that point my first thought is Clemson's done this before. They play a close game. They kind of get behind to start the second half, and then they somehow come back at the end of the fourth quarter, and everyone's like, "Whoo, wasn't that a nail biter or whatever?" And Dabo Sweeney's always like, "No, no, no. Like we know how to like perform in these situations. Blah blah blah." They just never came out to play in the second half. I mean,
Yeah.
Duke came out and just balled out, and then the quarterback asked for an extension on his homework, and the teacher's like, your lineman showed up, sent it all in. Like you're not getting any preferential treatment. The rest of the team turned their homework in early." And so I think it's funny that they got beat by someone that can't even get an extension on his paper by his teacher.
Yeah. No, so I stayed up. I watched all, but I think like half of the first quarter because I didn't get home yet. This was an absolutely just wild game, and I mean, it's what you expect from a Monday night college football game. I mean, there was 2 blocked kicks Duke had over Clemson. They blocked both Clemson's kicks. Just wacky turnovers. I will say the one time I would say there's a little bit of controversy. I don't think it would have changed the outcome in the grand scheme of things. Um, Clemson went for it on 4th down. As, Klubnik was running, he had to scramble. He ran for the first down. He slid a yard early, so he was down a yard early, and I get that. The linebacker for Duke came flying across the field, though, and targeted him in the head, hits him. But they said because he had already given himself up and he was sliding, that the play was over, so this is a dead ball foul. So therefore, Duke gets the ball back still, then it's gonna be a 15-yard penalty. So there was a little controversy around that.
Is
Like I
that the
said, I
Kenny Pickett rule?
no, so the Kenny Pickett rules, you can't fake a slide now. So like
Okay, okay,
he
okay.
was full on sliding.
Right, right,
He
right.
put his feet up and everything. Um, and so the rule with that is whenever you start your slide, wherever the ball is, he was a full yard behind, but then like after he hit the ground, the dude launched himself and hit him. It was targeting. It was a clear targeting.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first time though I'd ever seen it called as a dead ball foul. And Duke got the ball, and then they just had to back up 15 yards and they went again. I thought that was a little weird, but again, I really
Did,
don't think it would have changed the outcome.
do you see a catastrophic downfall like this? I mean, to this level. I mean, Clemson was national level top 3 team for how many years? Uh, they've made the comparisons now. I think the quarterback is the only 5-star recruit on Duke's team. They have one 4-star recruit on the team. So of 5
Mm.
and 4-star recruits, I think it was like 40 some Clemson has to the 2 that Duke has. I mean, this just shows that if you have a couple calls go your way, you're playing at your best, and you catch a team not expecting not expecting it. You can go out there and upset somebody.
Yeah. I mean, I don't see Clemson falling to like the bottom of the ACC or even middle of the pack. I think they're always going to be competing. I think what their issue is if you look at the landscape of college football, is everybody's welcoming these transfers in. We're sending transfers out. Um, Dabo has been very anti-transfer portal. If you want to
Yep.
transfer, you want to be here, fine, leave. But he doesn't really tap into the transfer portal to pull new guys in. He's also very outspoken against NIL, and I think that turns not only some recruits but also a lot of those transfers away
Which
as well. And so
what
I think I think that is what's hurting this team more so than anything. I mean, Clemson likes to bring in young, talented, uber talented freshmen, develop them for 4 years, and then see how they mature and perform and plug and play as they go. And I think that worked great, a couple years ago. And I still think they're going to be a fine program, but I don't think they're national championship caliber unless they start to adapt to what college football is now. If you look at Nick Saban, that's what he does. He was he started his dynasty run at Alabama. They ran I back formation, Big Ten. kind of football that we see now. He realized that isn't what is going to get it done anymore. He finally adopted, gets his OC in there. They adopt the spread formation. That's what they run now. And now with NIL and transfer portal and all this other stuff, he's adopted that in as well. So it's evolve or die. And I think Dabo Sweeney's refusal to evolve is what's hurting this team.
The last thing that I just wanted to say about Clemson is you had mentioned, which I've heard multiple times also, Dabo is very against NIL. It's funny that Clemson was the first school in the country to open a whole building based around NIL recruiting deals for their college athletes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just funny that, I mean, football obviously is the biggest moneymaker for a school like that in the ACC, and their coach is so outspoken against it, yet they've got boosters and stuff building buildings about this stuff to try and bring in the NIL deals for these players.
Yeah. I mean, my favorite part of all this is, I mean, it's a joke right now, but, Clemson was one of the schools that really pushed for the ACC to adopt this pay scale of the better teams get paid more money, and now they're looking at being one of the best teams across all athletics to kind of falling down that leaderboard. Again, we had to wait and see. It's week one. We'll see where the season shakes out from here, but that'd be very funny. That's kind of where everything heads, and Clemson wants more money, and then they suck, and now they're not going to get more money.
Clemson wants more money, and now they're going to get the same money as Pitt.
Yeah. Let's look at our pick'em standings updated after this week. So Nick leads the way at 16-6. Slade, you're right behind him, 15-7. I'm struggling out the gate here. I'm 11-11. I went 7-8 this past week. You went 11-4, as did Nick. So rough week for me. But it's okay. It's early. I'm 5 games back. Yeah, I'm plenty of time to catch up. Cash out standings. Nick 4-1. Slade, you're at 2-3. I'm at 3-2. Listen, as long as I'm positive, I will take it any day.
Do not take betting advice from me.
Yeah, it's okay. Hey, week 0 set you back. But week 1, you kind of had a little bounce back there. You'll be fine. You went
1-1.
Yeah, you went 1-1, but you'll improve from here. You'll be fine. I think Nick got lucky with his. I'll say that. I'm just kidding. He did really well with these picks last year. I think he beat both of us by like 20.
He doesn't bet any of it, but he gives out the betting odds. Yeah.
So before we move on and we talk about upcoming week 2, who do you have as your most disappointing team from week 1?
Yeah, I don't have to talk much about it. I'm going with Clemson. I think that I talked so highly of them during our Saturday podcast, and I thought that they were going to come out, and I honestly saw the score being completely flipped. I didn't see Clemson like going out and scoring 40 points, but I definitely saw them winning like by 3 scores, 28-7, having a decent defense out there to kind of stop Leonard and his offense, and that kind of being the way. And boy, was the script flipped there. I just hope that they're able to turn it around, because they play Florida State in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Sorry. So I hope that they're able to kind of figure it out, because their best chance at making the playoffs now is winning out, and that includes them beating Florida State in 3 weeks.
And most likely they'll have to beat them twice, because they'll have probably play them. Yeah, in the ACC championship. My most disappointing team, I'm going to go with Baylor. I wasn't super high on that. Like, I didn't have them picked to win the Big 12 or anything this year, but when we did our Big 12 preview earlier in the year, I had them as my most improved team. I thought they could be competing to win the Big 12, and they go out, they lose at home 42-13 to Texas State. Texas State had never beaten a Power 5 school before Saturday. I mean, if you look at the total yards, Baylor gave up 441 yards. They only had 524 yards total. Just not what you would expect out of Baylor. And now they're starting QB. Blake Shapen is hurt. He's going to be out for at least 2 or 3 more weeks. And so Baylor is going to have a rough start to the year. They have Utah coming to town this week now as well. So what looked to be a promising season for Baylor, especially they won the Big 12 championship 2 years ago. Really struggled last year. Okay, this is the bounce back year. They might get back there again, but they should be better. And now here they are. They lose to Texas State week 1. most likely going to lose to Utah in week 2. Um, so it's going to be a rough start for Baylor. They play Liberty then. I think it's Liberty, LIU. It's an FCS school, and then they play Texas, and then they get UCF and Texas Tech. That's how they go into October. So we could be looking at Baylor being 1-5 at to start the season here, and that's not where I think anybody had Baylor being at. So that's why they were my most disappointing team in week 1. Um, who's a team that changed your mind in a positive way in week 1? Somebody that maybe you weren't high on, or you didn't think was going to be good at all, and now here they are. They might not look like national title contenders, but they look a lot better than what you thought they would.
Um, I don't know how to put this. I kind of have two. The first one was Tulane. I did not think they were going to win that game as handedly as they did. I think we kind of already touched on that a good bit in that I definitely thought South Alabama was going to come out and kind of make it a one-score game coming down the stretch for the fourth quarter, and it was going to be anyone's ball game. The fact that that wasn't the case and Tulane kind of took hold of that game the entire time, that definitely surprised me. The other one, USC's defense gave up less points this week. We still hit the over. I'm very happy about that.
They hit the over on their own.
Yeah,
Oh, I guess
they
they
tied
pushed it.
it. Yeah,
Yeah, they
yeah.
pushed it. Um, for me, I think I'm going to go with Wyoming.
I like
I
it.
mean, they were competing for the Mountain West last year. Um, kind of struggled towards the end there. They fell out of contention. I didn't expect anything big out of them with Texas Tech coming to town. Again, I was very high on Texas Tech in the offseason, and they go out there and they beat them in double overtime. They weathered the storm. That was a really fun game to watch as well Saturday night. Um, they can absolutely compete to win the Mountain West, especially with how ugly Boise State played. I think the Mountain West is wide open between those three. You throw an Air Force to that mix. The Mountain West is going to be a lot of fun to watch. So I'm going to go with Wyoming. Change my got my attention to look at them. Um, and I'm excited to see where they go for the rest of the season. Looking at Thursday and Friday games, obviously NFL kicks off on Thursday night. So there's one game. I think it's Murray State at Louisville. We're not going to pick that. And then on Friday, there's one game of note. I think this is going to be a very fun game to watch. We have Illinois visiting Kansas. This will be 7:30 on ESPN2. Nick is going to go with Kansas. Slade, who do you got in this game?
I'm going with Illinois here. I think that they showed that they're able to score some points. I think they put up 30 points week one. I just think that Kansas is going to have some struggles, some adjustments, and I think that Illinois will just be able to kind of capitalize on those struggles.
Yeah. I was back and forth for most of today trying to pick this. I'm going to go with Illinois though as well. I just don't know how good Kansas can be on defense. Again, I have Illinois picked to win the Big Ten West. I think they got their week 1 scare out of the way. Um, so I'm expecting big things from Illinois. This team, I think this is still going to be very good. I'm expecting big things out of Illinois this year. Still think this is going to be a very good game. I'm excited to watch it, but I think Illinois gets it done on the road. I'm also super excited to see, and we're going to talk about it here in a minute. But Kansas they unveiled brand new uniforms for this whole season, and for this game they're going to bring out blackout uniforms, which I think look absolutely sick. All black and then white Kansas lettering looks amazing. I can't wait to see that under the lights Friday night. So last week we did a top 5 draft of our favorite football movies. Today, we're going to do a top 5 draft of our favorite college football uniforms, not just helmets, not just jerseys, but the full uniform. Slade, I'll let you go first again. Who are you? What uniform are you taking with your first pick?
I know you're not going to pick this one, so I'm going to go with the Penn State retro. I
I knew
I
you were
think
going to
they
pick that
call
one.
yeah, I mean, it's the one where it has the white stripe around the neck, it has the white stripe around
Yeah,
the armband, they wear the white pants with the blue stripe down the side. It's the Joe Pa era, I should say, blue and whites. So I really like that one. I need to put it in the list, so I put it at 5.
yeah. Oh, that's your number one pick.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Yeah.
Number 1. Sounds good.
um, my number one pick, I'm going to go with BYU's baby blue uniforms. So like the normal uniforms, a little bit darker shade of blue, and every once in a while they wear these powder blue, baby blue jerseys. I absolutely love how they look, especially with the the white stenciling and then the white helmets. I love everything about those jerseys. So that's my number one pick for best jersey. Who do you have at number two?
We're kind of going in a color pattern here. I'm going with Tulane's powder blue helmets with it's like a grayish jersey with green numbers with the green wave on the helmet. Really love that. I think that it's hard. It's a hard look. It looks really nice, really clean. I like those jerseys.
So wait, are you talking the green numbers or the ones that they wore at the Cotton Bowl with the white numbers? Because I had so I
I'm talking green numbers.
okay on my list. I had the Cotton Bowl jerseys. It was
Okay,
powder
okay.
blue, but it had white jersey or numbers. But that's not who I'm taking next. My
Wait, your
next pick,
jersey was powder blue?
yeah.
Oh no. I'm talking about different. So it's powder blue helmet with the green wave, and then it was gray jerseys
Oh, okay,
with
okay.
the green lettering.
I see now. For my number two pick, I'm going to go with Oregon's apple green jerseys. Most notably, the game I remember these the most from was when they played Florida State in the Rose Bowl. It's not a super dark green. It's not a super light green. I call it apple green. These are my favorite Oregon jerseys that they wear. So that's my number two pick.
Yeah. So my third pick is going to be kind of sticking with the playoff games. I'm going with Ohio State's blackout uniforms with the red lettering, or with the red numbers. Sorry.
Yeah.
Um, I just think it's really cool. And what a great way to unveil, just like you were saying with Oregon on the playoff stage.
Yeah. No, that was my number three pick too. So I'll have to move my next one. I'm gonna go with Florida State's home jerseys. I love the garnet and gold, and then I love the little patterns they have around the neck and then the sleeves as well. So that's my number four jersey.
Number four for me, or that was number
Or,
three for
yeah,
you,
that was my
right?
number three.
Yeah.
Sorry, number three.
Number four for me. I'm sticking with powder blue. Ole Miss. Love baby blue colors. So I'm going with the powder blues for Ole Miss.
Okay. Sticking with powder blues for number four, I'm gonna go with UNC's Jordan. Jordan, I call them the Jordan blue jerseys. They have the dark blue stripes and then dark blue numbers down the middle. I just love how they look. So that's my number four pick.
Um, Number five. I'm gonna go with University of Oregon's breast cancer jerseys, the all black with the pink with the pink
The ones they
numbers.
had last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are good
I
ones
like
too.
those.
Um, my number five, I'm going to go with Oklahoma State's. They're black jerseys that they wear with orange helmets and orange pants, especially if they do the chrome face mask or
Yeah.
chrome decals on the side. I just love the way that the orange makes the black kind of pop out more and vice versa. And then once you add a little touch of chrome on there, I think that's chef's kiss right there. So that's
Do
what I'll
you
put at my number five.
do you have one honorable mention?
I have three left.
No.
No,
Uh, I,
yeah, you go ahead and tell me your honorable mentions.
my honorable mention is the Horned Frog jerseys that TCU wore with, I think it was Andy Dalton. They were like the Trippy Frog jerseys or something like that when Nike Pro was all about
Oh yeah,
it.
yeah.
And they wore like the undershirts that had like the designs on it. It kind of matched with the jersey and everything.
Yeah,
I really like those. They're kind of like more black, but a little bit of purple, like shimmer to them and stuff. I like those.
yeah. The three jerseys I had left on my list that neither one of us picked. ECU, they had throwback jerseys, and then for their bowl game this past year, they did a modern throwback.
With the
Lots of
Pirates one.
purple, yeah, lots of purple, white, and then yellow. Loved it all mixed together. The other one was LSU's white jerseys. I like the all white and then the purple stripes on the shoulder just to kind of make everything pop out. And then the other one I had on my list, I did 10 just in case you took five of mine. My 10th one was Virginia Tech's. Their burgundy or their orange jerseys. Their normal maroon ones are fine. I just really like the way that the orange ones look, and they kind of make everything else, all the accents really complement each other well, and I like the way they look.
Speaking of this upcoming weekend, you had mentioned Kansas jerseys coming up this weekend. What do you think of Tennessee's jerseys they're wearing this weekend? It's a throwback to being the first team to have a black quarterback in the to start in college football. They're all gray with orange accents. Did you see them yet? Or are you looking it up to see?
Oh, so it's a brand new smoke gray.
Yeah, they're unveiling it this weekend. I think they just have like pictures of Hennon or not Hennon. What's his name? Oh crap.
Milton.
Yeah, Milton. I was saying Hendon
Milton.
Hooker. 1 year late.
So here, I'll put them up on the screen. So, yeah.
I think they're pretty cool as well. It would be cool to see that jersey play against Kansas blackout jerseys. Yeah.
Tell me why this isn't off on the screen.
It's on the screen.
No, there you go. Now I can get you back. So yeah, yeah, but then you left. Yes. Yeah, so these are the jerseys. So they've had the smoke gray before, but this is a whole new jersey. Wow, I like that. So I think they had new as well, but I really like how all that looks together. Those are no, those are nice jerseys. I like that. Let's look up Kansas.
Yeah, they look sweet. I already
I
like
like
it from the
the
little
the
picture.
enlarged Jayhawk on the helmet too.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool.
I love everything about this uniform. Like I have no notes to make this uniform any better at all. I love that.
To be honest, I think the uniform would look just as good with the normal Kansas logo on the helmet as well. I do like this logo on the shoulder on the shoulder there better, but I think on the helmet, I think it looks great like this. I think that they could keep these jerseys like as a like a home alternative, or is that what they're doing with these?
Oh.
Is this like a one-off thing, or do you think these will be like their alternatives?
Yeah, I think this is like their alternate.
Okay.
No, yeah, these are alternates. Yeah, they had brand new blue. They have new blue jerseys too, with like kind of a new design to it. But yeah, so those are going to be their alternate jerseys. That'll do it for this week's episode of Blitz Boys. We thank you guys so much for joining us. We hope you join us Saturday morning, 9 a.m., YouTube, and on our X, our Twitter. We hope to see you guys there. If I can get the thing to load. There we go. So our game of the week is going to be Ole Miss at Tulane. So we're going to be breaking that game down a lot. Super excited to talk about it and all of the other games as well. I think we have like 12 games we're going to pick this week. Of course, your headlines.
One of them's going to be Texas, Alabama. Don't you guys worry.
No, I cut that one out. But no, we're going to have a lot to talk about Saturday morning, so we hope you guys join us there. Thank you, as always, for checking us out here on Jack Wagon Sports Network. We will see you guys in the next video.